I'm just gonna jump right on in. We're already warmed up, right? We're gonna talk about nested collections. Um, so when we talked about hashes a couple days ago, and I talked about how the values of a key in a hash could actually be anything. They could be a number, or like an integer, a string. It could be an array. It could be another hash. And when we have like a hash as a value inside of a hash, or an array as a value inside of a hash, we call this a nested data structure, since we have multiple data structures inside and nested within one another. This is very, very common. So we want to get really good at exploring and navigating these nested data structures. And we'll discuss some strategies about that as well. The thing I really want to hone in on for this is that the concepts of how we navigate arrays and hashes never changes. So if we could get really, really good at this foundational knowledge of how we access hashes, how we manipulate them, how we work with arrays, we can get really good at that foundational knowledge, then working with more complex nested data structures is going to be, you know, just a process of implementing that foundational knowledge over and over again. So that's really what we're going to hone in on. So with the warm-up today, for the warm-up for this lesson, I will drop it in your backend channel so you have it. Oh, I didn't format that nicely. I apologize. There, that's better. So I'm going to have you spend a couple minutes with this. Really, I want you to try to answer these questions without pry. So answer them on your own, and then use pry to verify your assumption. So let's spend about three minutes doing this. All right, so let's come back together and kind of move through these. We'll move through it a little bit quick because it's review, but if you have a question, please, please, please ask it, because I promise you're not the only one with that question. And like I said in the beginning, if we can get really, really good at this foundational knowledge, we will be golden when it comes to dealing with more complex nested structures. Okay, so you know what, I'm gonna do how I actually normally do this, which is I'm just going to call on people, right? And so if you absolutely do not know, you can definitely phone a friend, okay? But for the first one, when looking at this hash, if we want to return the amount of dogs in this hash, let me put a pry in here and we'll work through it like this. How would I do that? Sandra, so if I want to come in here, let me run this. Oops, that was not. All right, so I've got my animals hash here, and I want to return the amount of dogs that I have. Sandra, what can I write to do that?
Yeah, I wrote like animals, so the name of the hash, and then a square bracket with the string dogs in it to call the key, and you should get the value.
Awesome, perfect, thank you. This will actually, me calling on you will help this lesson go a little faster too, since we're already short on a little bit of time. Thank you so much, Sandra. Can everyone see my terminal okay? Is it too low on the screen, or is it okay? Okay, awesome. Exactly, so when we want to query a value in a hash, we do the name of the hash, we can use our bracket notation and insert the key that we're looking for, and then the return value from that statement is going to be the value of that key. Okay, all this knowledge, just store this away, okay? The next one I'm gonna have, let's have Robert, if you wanna help me out with, I want to add 3 parakeets. I don't have any parakeets yet, but I wanna add 3 parakeets to this hash. What do I write to do that?
So you do animals and then in brackets, parakeets in quotes equals, what was it, 3? 3.
Yes, equals 3.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Robert. So again, when we want to assign a new key value pair, we, same thing, we just call the name of the hash, put in square brackets the name of the key that we want to set, use our assignment operator, and set a value. And that will set that new key value pair into our hash. Great. And then how about Alex, if you want to help with this last one? If I want to increase the amount of cats by 2, what would I write here in my pry session?
So it's really interesting because like it's really easy just to assign it as 7. I'm not sure actually how to iterate over it to like just add 2 to the value, or if you just set it equal to like cats equals cats plus 2.
Yes, that last one you said is exactly it, right? Because we wouldn't want to set it just to 7 because maybe we don't know how many cats are currently in there, but we have just brought 2 more cats into the household, which is what I was trying to say. And so we just know we want to increase that number by 2. So exactly what you said, Alex, is if we just grab how many cats we have, right? Because this will be a query to give us how many cats. And if we just increment that by 2, then it doesn't matter what the value was. We are now just incrementing that by 2. Whoops. And it will then reset our value to 2 more than what it was before. So awesome. And so this is just doing a query for that, for the key of cats, and we'll bring back the return value will be whatever the value is, which in this case was 5, and then we add 2 to that. Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, can you explain exactly why you want to do plus equals again?
Yeah, yes, I'm glad you asked that. So plus equals is a shortcut. Let me do this in here. So if we did animals, cats, and we knew we wanted to increment it. So what we could do is just use our assignment operator. Because remember, if we assign a value to a key that's already there, it will just override it. So if we did this, it would just override this value of 9 to a 5. But what we want to do is we don't know how many cats are in there. So if we do a query like this, plus 2, remember when we have an assignment operator, the right-hand side gets evaluated first. So this will do a query in our hash to pull the key of cats, and this will be replaced with that return value, which is a 5. And then we're going to add 2 to that, which will give us 7. So this whole statement just becomes a 7. And then this is our assignment operator, which we just saw from the parakeets. I can never find anything in pry. Right here, where we set those parakeets equal to 3. So this is just overwriting our cats to 2 more than what it was. And so the plus equals is a shortcut for this syntax because this is so common. We can, because this animals, cats is repeated, we can just do animals, cats plus equals 2. And that is the shorthand notation for the statement on line 7. Awesome, great question. Cool. All right, so let's move down to the pet names then here. I need to move my pry down. Let me rerun this. Okay, and then so for that first one, Yessie, if you want to come off mute and help me, what we want to do to this pet names array is I want to add the value of Claude. So pet names, and go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So I guess what I did was, so I have the pet names, and then I assigned the variable of name to Claude.
So you did like name equals,
yeah, equals Claude.
Okay. Oh gosh.
And then what I did is I took pet names and then shoveled in name.
Yeah, perfect. You could also just shovel in the string itself. That's essentially what you are doing. Either way, totally fine and will work. And then we've got now Claude added to the end of our array. Perfect. That's how we add elements to the array. Thank you. For the next one, I'll have you do both of them, access which name is first and which is last in our list. Phil, if you're willing to come off mute and help me with that one. For my pet names array here, how do I access the first and the last?
Yeah, you can just do dot first to get the first and dot last to get the last.
Awesome. What's the other way to do that?
You could do it with like index. Index 0 would be the first, and index -1 pulls the last.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, Phil. So we've got those two ways. So Ruby, well, give us like a million ways, but we can do dot first or dot last on an array to get that first or that last value, or we can use the indexes with the square bracket notation. Either way, we're going to get that first or that last value. Cool. And then the last one, maybe, is this one a little tricky? I don't know. Mike, do you want to help me? If we want to remove Fila from the list, how would I remove Fila from the list?
We could use delete and then put Fila into the argument.
Cool. So how do I use that one?
So dot delete, and then chuck in a parens, and then in quotation marks type in Fila with a capital F.
Like that.
Yeah. And I think we could use shift, or I don't know if it's shift or unshift, but the one that removes the 0 indices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is a weird one. Those to me don't sound like intuitive of what they do. I think it's unshift. We'll remove whatever that first element is. But we didn't, so yeah, but I like this one because we asked specifically for Fila. We didn't actually know if Fila was first or second or third or fourth. So being very specific and saying delete whatever string you match to Fila, just delete that one. And that's what it did too. If you know you want to delete the first thing, you can definitely use the unshift or shift, whichever it is. All right, awesome. Cool. All right, great job. So that is our basic foundational knowledge that we are just going to continue to build on and build on. What other questions do you have about those actions that we just went through? All right. Oh gosh, sorry, I'm trying to recreate some breakout rooms and I messed them all up. All right, so what we're gonna do now to start exploring some of these nested data structures is I put your tasks in your Slack channel. You're gonna do some breakout rooms, do the screen sharing so that I want a discussion over these. And I really want you to get into that habit of making some guesses and some assumptions before you test it and pry. Okay, to really like exercise your brain muscles and test your assumptions. Right, so I'll pop around probably about 10 minutes-ish, maybe a little less, in this first breakout room exploring these questions. Okay, breakout room should be open. Okay, we are all back. So I'm going to continue this pattern of calling on people. Actually, before I do that though, any questions come up that we should just address right off the bat? Anything funky, anything that seemed kind of unclear or that you want to just bring to the table? All right, cool. How about Sam, if you want to help me for this numbers array, the one that says what is numbers.first.count, what was your thought process of thinking through what that solution would be before you tried it in pry? So the numbers.first.count.
So we're doing numbers.first.count and not numbers.count, right?
Correct.
Okay, so numbers.first.count, the way I see this is usually I evaluate from left to right. So we look at numbers as a whole array, and it's just a container of two containers. So the first container is what we're looking at because we do numbers.first. So now we're targeting that first container, which is 1, 2, 3. And actually, we're counting it. So we're running a count method on the first array.
Yeah, that was great. That was a better explanation than I would give, so thank you. So let's talk about this too, because the other thing that becomes, thank you so much, Sam. The other thing that becomes important when thinking about these nested collection is return values. So remember with Ruby, every expression, every method has a return value. And when we do something like chaining, which is what this numbers.first.count, oh my gosh, this is called chaining. Okay, so I'm chaining methods. And so how does Ruby evaluate this chaining? Well, how it does is first it takes the object. Oh, I can't highlight a single one here. It's going to take the object and the first method that is called, not the method first, but the first method. This is a poor example. It's going to run this. And now whatever this evaluates to, then Ruby will run the dot count or the next method on. Okay, and so let's look at this to see, so I can illustrate what I'm talking about. So numbers dot first, we know numbers is an array, and dot first returns to us the first element of that array. Now this is the first element, and like Sam said, this is a container of containers. So the first element just happens to be another array. So when we do numbers dot first, we get that back. And then when we call dot count, it's calling it on this return value from numbers dot first. So dot count, we do expect to be 3. Okay, so we always want to think about the Ruby, think about the code in pieces and think about what does this evaluate to, and what if I chain this? Because knowing this returns now an integer, I could do things like, chain even more. I could do a 2f on this, because that 2f is a method I can call on an integer, and then that would give me, something else. So we could do this chaining. We just always need to think about those return values. Awesome. Any other questions about the numbers nested array that came up? Okay. Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
So if we had like 30 arrays in there, could we just reference it by a bracket number before calling the dot count? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. So you're saying like for numbers, if we did like a 0 instead?
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And then what's cool too with that is we can chain our bracket notation, because that's just a method. So if I wanted to access the value of 3 here, I could do either a dot last here, or I could do a 2 if I knew there was only 3 elements in these. I could do this, and that would return to me the 3, because number 0 returns this array, and then so this bracket 2 is being called on that array, so it'll access this element here. So Alex, I'm not sure, did that answer your question or? Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Cool, awesome. Cool, so the next one I wanna look at is this food feelings. And the question I think I'd like to ask is how can I access the value of also tasty? Let's see who have it. How about Max? I don't think we've heard from you yet today. Max, how would I, in this food feelings hash, or I'm sorry, it's an array, how would I access the value of also tasty?
Of also tasty?
Uh-huh.
You could do food feelings and then open bracket 1.
Awesome.
And then open bracket calzone.
Yeah. Awesome. Great job. So go ahead.
I was just going to say there's another method that I used too that was super useful, which is dig.
Okay.
And
how'd you do that?
So it's foodfeelings.dig. And then open parentheses, 1, comma, and then the symbol calzone. So it does kind of the same thing, but it iterates down through it.
Ruby.dig method. So hold on, what I'm showing here now. So whenever you hear, because right in Ruby, there's so many ways to do a thing. So if you hear of a way that you're like, I don't know what this does, I always like to go to the actual Ruby docs. It's helpful if you put in, you can just change in this URL the version of Ruby that you're using. And then we can look at .dig, retrieves the value object corresponding to each key objects repeatedly. So we can dig here for foo. Okay, and then it will go, oh, the commas is like a nesting. Interesting. Very cool. Awesome. So we learned .dig. We're learning so many new methods today. What a great day. Perfect. Thank you so much. And the thing though that I want to, so .dig doesn't necessarily have this. Well, it does. You have to, well, actually dig is really interesting, isn't it? So it also works on return values, right? Because if we do this, food feelings is an array, and the first solution you did, we accessed the element at index 1. So if we look at this array, this is our element at index 0, it's a hash. And then this is our second element, is the second hash. So if we access that, we get back a hash. And so we know if this gives us back a hash, well, we know how to query a hash looking for a specific key. We just use our bracket notation. So we can chain on our bracket notation here to say, okay, with the return value from this, the food feelings 1, now go into, or dig into, I like that, this hash and look for the key of calzone and give me back the value from that. So dig is actually working off the same thing, right? Saying, you know, call element 1 and then this. I think the only thing I don't love about dig in just looking at this, I think it's really fun, but I don't think it's clear. Well, I was going to say, I don't think it's clear what kind of data structures you're accessing because you're just passing in arguments, but I guess it would either be an array or a hash. So either you're going to have an index or some kind of key. So I think either way, yeah, that's a cool method. Cool. Any questions about the that breakout session and those exercises? Okay, so we are gonna do another breakout room, but let's give you a 5-minute palm. I know this is a really long session this morning. I have a new appreciation for palms because we did like a staff training and we went an hour and a half with no palms and we were all dying. So ingrained into our systems now. Okay, that was fun. Let's go through some of that one. There's some really good discussions in these breakout rooms. So if we look at this, the pets hash right here, so actually I like how this one is structured. Sometimes when I come across a nested structure, I may change up the spacing a little bit so it's easier to read. Like for example, with this one, I might actually do something like this, where I even separate the keys within, oops, not that one, within this hash. And then here, I know this hash has these keys. So sometimes if we separate, and this is a lot of times how you might see it when you start working in mod 2 and mod 3, you might see this separated here, but actually this would be indented over so that we could see that the cat and dog line up so that these are keys in our outer hash. And then, oops, my indentation's off here. There we go. And then these keys, name and weight, are keys in the inner hash, or the hash that's the value of the dog key or the cat key. So you'll start getting a feel for how you like to look at these nested structures, but it's really helpful if you can separate it like this before you really start working on it, so you can actually see the structure of the nesting and what's going on and what's the value and what's the outer structure, all that kind of stuff. Cool. So how about if we jump to this, the one, how can I access the element of 15 pounds? V, I don't think we've heard from you. So if you want to come off mute, V, and help me through how to access this 15 pounds value.
So I will start by getting inside the hash. So I know that 15 pounds is a value for the key cat. So the pets bracket key cat. Yeah. And then since I'm inside there, I will look for the key that returns 15 pounds, which is weight. So just bracket and weight inside there.
Awesome. Yeah, and I really like how you explain that. Thank you, V. So you're talking about going into the hash. So we can see here, if I access that, the first key of cat, right? Remember when we access a key, the return value is the value of that key. And the value of this cat key is itself a whole nother hash, right? So we get this hash back. And remember, we can do bracket notation chaining. So if we know this gets us back a hash, then we can simply say, okay, well, within that hash, within the key of cat, the value is a hash. And from that hash, I want now the key of weight. Then that will give us this 15 pounds. A couple of questions came up in some of the breakout groups. Usually in a hash, we know the keys, right? Because keys are unique and these are things that we've set. So typically we know the names of the keys. And so that's something that we can use later on this week. We'll talk about nested enumeration, where we have an enumerable inside of an enumerable. And this kind of structure will help us with this kind of nested enumeration. So it's helpful to be able to work through this chaining. Cool. How about, let's do the one, how can I add the symbol age of 3 to the value of the key dog? Who haven't we heard from? Liam, do you want to share of how we can add the key of 3 to the value of the key of dog? Does that make sense?
Sorry, I was muted. So you would do pets, and then in brackets, dog, and then close brackets, open another bracket, do age, and then close that bracket, and then do plus equals 3, or just equals 3.
Awesome. Yeah, equals 3 because it doesn't exist yet. Awesome. And so now we can check our pets hash again, and now we can see in the dog key, in that value, it now also has the key of age 3. Awesome. Great job. And so we were able to do that, again, working off return values. Pets of dog returns us this hash. And we know to set a new key value pair in a hash, all we do is a bracket notation of whatever key we want to set. We use our assignment operator, and then we can set a value. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Liam. Any questions about this pets nested hash? Or if you had different solutions that you wanted? Cool. All right, let's look at the pizza toppings one. It's right before lunch, so I made you all very hungry with the pizza toppings. All right, so here's our pizza toppings. And let's go down to the one, how can we access pineapple? Ben, do you want to share with us your thought process and how we can go through and access the element of pineapple?
Yeah, so what I did was you can just pretty much just go to the pizza toppings and then in the bracket notation with the symbol fruit, and that should give you your pineapple.
Ooh, yes, but what if there was multiple things? Because this is an array, so take me a level deeper.
Then I would either kind of see what index they wanted. Is that what you mean, like if there are multiple things in that fruit value?
Well, basically, I want back not an array containing the string pineapple. All I want back is the string of pineapple.
Oh, so then maybe the fruit dot values?
I could dot values though. We'll just
Oh, you're right.
because that returns an array. So you can work on the assumption that we can like see this and we know what index this is off of. So how can I just pop this first string out of this array?
Just the first index, right? With 0.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. And that gives us that string. Perfect. Thank you, Ben. So yeah, he worked off of this, his knowledge that the pizza toppings is just a giant hash. And we can see that the keys here, you can see a little better here. We have 3 keys in that outer hash with veggies, protein, and fruit, which fruit totally belongs on a pizza, especially pineapple. Did I make anyone, did I give anyone pain right there by that statement? And then when we access that key of fruit, we get back an array. Okay, and so in that array, then we can just use our array methods to chain on to the fruit and then get back either there's only one element in this array, but maybe there's multiple, and we could get back either the first, second, third elements, or we can do enumeration on top of that, right? If we get back an array, we can always then do some enumeration on that array. Awesome. Any other questions come up with this pizza toppings hash, or any questions about accessing the hash within or an array within a hash? Okay, we're gonna do one final breakout session. And what we're gonna do is actually utilize some of the Ruby exercises. So if you've already done the Ruby exercises, you can just kind of erase what you wrote and redo it. But we're gonna do I put it in your Slack channel where to go. It's the collections and then the nested collections. I'm actually gonna have you go all the way to test 11 and start there and work with your breakout rooms. I recommend screen sharing just so you all have something to talk about. But let's start with test 11 and let's just see how far do you get within the next 12 minutes or so. And then we'll come back and maybe do 1 or 2 of them together. Cool. All right. Breakout rooms are open. So that's a good question. And what, for everyone who just popped in, James was asking about, can we just search for the value and then have it pop back the key? The answer is yes, you can. I think it is value at, I'm having trouble remembering because I don't use it so often. Reason being, values are not unique, right? So the keys are unique. Values, there could be like 5,000 values of this particular date, all associated with different keys. So usually when we're accessing a hash, if you think about it like as using a dictionary, like a physical dictionary, we're going in trying to find the key or the word, and then we want to get back the definition. Yes, sometimes you do want to go in like with the definition first and then get the key back. But even if you can imagine in a dictionary, there's multiple similar definitions that will have different words. It's weird to use that analogy backwards, but hopefully you get the point. So yes, there are, and I think it is values at, will give you that key. So that's definitely something you can play with and a good tool, right? The more tools you have in your tool belt, the more, the more tools you have to do the job. So cool, let's look really quick then with our last couple minutes. I just want to do one of them together. Maybe this number 19 one, which was, let's see, 3-day forecast. So I'm wanting to get back this, the expected, using the 3-day forecast variable defined above, change the high on the first day to 99. Okay, I see. So this high, I want to change to 99. Now, what I was talking about with some groups too is restructuring this because this looks kind of jumbled and it's hard to see. So what I might do first is kind of separate out. So days, the value of days is an array, which extends all the way to here. So maybe I might like actually take the value from that, oops, and like push it over and maybe like line up the keys a little bit so I can see what's going on. And then I see this is another element in that array. Oh, there's even another element in this array. So maybe I'll do that. And then this one, okay, now that array ended, this comma indicates this is another key in my main array structure, I'm sorry, main hash. And then there's a comma indicating another key. So this helps me just a little bit see more what I'm dealing with, that I've got 3 keys in my outer structure. And then the value of days is an array with more hashes inside of that. So cool. So would anyone like to come off mute and kind of help me with this one? What did you do to the 3-day forecast variable here to actually change the high to 99? And if you want to also like walk us through your thought process on that. Any volunteers? I won't call on someone to do this one. Yeah, Aiden, go for it.
Yeah, so I did 3-day forecast and accessed days, so bracket and then symbol days.
Awesome.
And then after that, did a bracket 0.
Okay, why are you doing that?
Because we're accessing the first item in an array.
Yeah, good. So I'm sorry, I know I interrupt a lot when you all help me with solutions. So so 3-day forecast, he's first accessing the key of days, which gives back the value, which is an array. And so since we want to access that first day, we know to access the first element in an array, which would be this one, we can just use that bracket notation of 0. All right, cool. Aiden, keep going.
Yeah, and then to switch back over to a hash, we select the high symbol.
Cool.
And then we set that equal to 99.
Yeah, awesome. And this should pass my test. We can definitely, well, we should run it because we should always run our test. Oh, what did I do wrong? Oh, I just got back 99. That makes sense. Because actually we didn't want to do that here. We wanted to take 3-day forecast and do that there. Oops, and then just test 3-day forecast. Okay, awesome, that works. And so again, this is all about, thank you so much, Aiden. This is all about working in little pieces and just knowing what your return value is. So 3-day forecast, again, accessing is a hash, and we want to access the key of days, which gives us an array. Then we access the first element of that array, which gives us back a hash. Then in that hash, we want to access the key of high and then set it equal to 99. And so that's what this whole statement will do for us. Awesome. Any final questions before we wrap this up? Cool. Feel free to continue working through those Ruby exercises if you weren't able to get through them all, or go back to number 1 and go through them all to get that practice in. But you're going to be working with these nested data structures for the rest of your software development career. So it is something you want to get really good at. And again, just work off that foundational knowledge of how we access hashes and how we access arrays. Okay. All right. So that is it. I will see you all again.